In this video, I'll show you how to solve the ALEKS problem called using the law of constant composition. This problem is going to be talking about an unknown substance called X. We have 4 samples of this substance X. X is known to be made up of 2 elements, E1 and E2, and we're given the mass of each one of those elements in all 4 of these samples. The first question that we're being asked is to determine whether X is a pure substance or a mixture. If X is a pure substance, then the ratio of the elements, E1 to E2, the ratio of the elements is going to be the same or constant for all 4 of these samples. So if we have a pure substance, the ratio of E1 to E2, E1 divided by E2, will be a constant. It will be the same for all 4 of these substances. If we have a mixture, then E1 to E2 will not be the same for all 4 of these samples. So let's begin by dividing E1 over E2. I'm going to make a column of the data, E1 divided by E2. 17.9 divided by 10.2. There isn't a shortcut here. You do have to do this calculation for all 4 of these samples. I'm going to use 3 sig figs for my answers. That's going to be 1.75 for the first sample. 10.9 divided by 6.2 is 1.76 for my second sample. 17.5 divided by 9.8 is 1.76 for my third sample. 20.3 divided by 11.6 is 1.75 for sample number 4. This is close enough. These are all the same, roughly the same, and that means that this substance is, or that this unknown X is a pure substance. If any one of those numbers was different from the others, then I would say that it was a mixture. There's not going to be a situation where you can't figure this out. You're always going to know the answer. They're either going to be the same or they're not going to be the same. Now, if X is a pure substance, then we also have the pleasure of answering the second question here. If this was a mixture, we wouldn't have to answer this question. But if X is a pure substance, ALEKS wants us to figure out now if we had a 5th sample with a total mass of 10 grams, so E1 plus E2 is 10 grams, how much of this 10-gram sample would be coming from element number 1? Now, to solve this problem, what we're going to do is figure out, we've got to answer ourselves a new question. What is the percent of E1 in the substance, in the unknown substance X? So we have to calculate what is the percent of mass of E1 in this particular substance. We can pick any one of the samples that we want to do this calculation. I'm just going to use sample number 1 just because it's on top. And what I'm going to do here is calculate, for sample number 1, I'm going to calculate the percent by mass of E1 in this whole sample. To do that, I am going to take the mass of E1, which is 17.9, and I'm going to write the equation out first. I'm going to take the mass of E1, and I'm going to divide it by the total mass of sample number 1, which is going to be E1 plus E2. So the mass of E1, which is 17.9, divided by the total mass, 17.9 plus 10.2. If we were really wanting to turn this into a percent, we multiply it by 100. That's going to give it to us in a percent format. Let's do that math. 17.9 divided by 17.9 plus 10.2. That is, multiplied by 100, 63.7%. So what we just determined there was that for sample number 1, 63.7% of that sample comes from E1, and the rest of it, the 38-ish percent, 36% of the sample comes from E2. So 63% of the substance comes from E1. And if we did that same calculation, use this same formula for sample number 2, we would get the same result. And if we did it for sample number 3, we would get the same result because we determined that this is a pure substance that has the same ratio or the same composition of E1 and E2, no matter what the sample is. So now going back to this question down here, this is telling us, what if we had a sample with a total mass of 10 grams? E1 plus E2, the total mass is 10 grams. What amount of that 10 grams comes from element E1? Well, we know from the calculation that we just did, 63% of the substance, no matter what the mass is, 63% of it is going to come from E1. So what we're asking ourselves now is, what is 63.7% of 10 grams? And because ALEKS has been nice and it's given us a nice number to work with, this problem is actually going to be pretty easy to solve. However, if it wasn't nice and simple like 10 grams, we would need to maybe do a little bit of math on this. So we would, if we had to figure it out by hand with a calculator, if we couldn't just do it in our head, we would say 10 grams, multiply that by the percent, 63.7 divided by 100, and that's going to give us 6.37 grams. It wants it to two significant figures, so that's going to be 6.4 grams.